Kazoo, switcheroo, Anyone But Me by Nancy Krolik. Chapter 8. Finally, the magical wind stopped blowing, but Katy was afraid to open her eyes. She'd already been turned into a hamster. What if this time she were something even worse, like an ant or something? Slowly, Katy cracked open one eye. She raised her hands to her face. No fur. Good. And she had fingers, 5 of them on each hand. She looked at her nails. They were filed short. A few of them still showed a few chips of leftover glow-in-the-dark glitter nail polish. These were definitely her hands. Was it possible? Had she turned back into herself? Quickly, Katy ran into the girls' room and looked in the mirror. An 8-year-old girl with red hair, green eyes, and a line of freckles across her nose looked back at her. It was true. Katy was back. Out of the corner of her eye, Katy saw a small orange ball of fluff rush past her into one of the bathroom stores. Speedy! The real Speedy was really on the loose. Quickly, she ran into the stall. She found Speedy hiding behind the toilet. He seemed frightened and confused. Katy scooped the hamster up and held him in her hands. "It's okay, little guy," she told him quietly. "Everything's back to normal now." As Katy walked back to the gym, the voices of her friends became louder. They were all complaining because Coach G and Mrs. Jerkman wouldn't let them chase after Speedy. Katy grinned as she opened the gym door. She would be a hero for bringing the hamster back. "Were you guys looking for this?" she asked as she walked in the door. "Katy, where'd you find him?" Susan shouted from the other side of the room. "Oh, we just sort of ran into each other in the girls' room," Katy replied. "Boy, it was a good timing you were late today," Kevin told her. "Otherwise, Speedy might have been gone forever." "It's never a good thing to be late for school, Kevin," Mrs. Jerkman reminded him. "But I am glad you found the hamster, Katy. Now, please take him back to the classroom and put him in his cage. And make sure the lid is on tightly." Katy did as she was told. She pat Speedy gently as she placed him down on his cage floor. Then she handed him a treat bar. "You deserve this," she whispered quietly. "We worked really hard this morning." Speedy slept for the rest of the morning. Katy spent the time trying to keep her mind on her lessons, but it was hard for her to think about anything other than her adventure. After all, how often does an 8-year-old girl turn into a hamster? Katy wished she could tell Jeremy and Suzanne all about what had happened to her, but she knew they would never believe her. She wouldn't believe it either if it hadn't happened to her. This was one secret Katy would have to keep to herself. "Boy, did you pick the wrong morning to be late," Jeremy told Katy as they walked out onto the playground after lunch. "It was so weird. Speedy was out of his mind. I'd never seen him like that." "I've never seen George like that either," Susan giggled. "I can't believe you missed it, Katy. He was terrified of a little hamster. What a wimp." "I can't believe we were ever scared of George," Miriam agreed. "I was never afraid of him," Kevin argued. Jeremy rolled his eyes. So how come you walk 3 blocks out of your way to get to school, just so you don't have to pass his house on the way?" Kevin blushed. The kids looked over at George. He was sitting on a bench all by himself. He didn't look mean anymore. He just looked lonely. "Hey, George!" Manny Gonzalez called out. "Why did the hamster cross the road?" George didn't answer. He obviously didn't want to talk about hamsters. "Because it was the chicken's day off." Manny finished off his own joke. Then he waited for George to say something mean to him. But George didn't say anything. He just scowled and turned away. For the first time, The other kids were doing the teasing. George didn't like that at all. Well, I guess we don't have to be afraid of George anymore, Jeremy said to the others. Susan nodded. We have Speedy to thank for that. Katie smiled to herself. She knew that Class 3A actually had her to thank for stopping George's bullying. She was a real hero. Yes, she is a real hero though. Did you like my story? Then push the thumbs up sign or the subscribe button, please. Bye. Thank you for listening.